Hey guys, time for another episode of Day in the Life of Vintage Classic Specialist. So lots accomplished today, but a lot of kind of hidden things that are a little hard to see, but all need to be done nonetheless. So let's talk about what Rafa did first on the gorgeous 64 one family Beetle. So he finished bolting the body to the pan. There was actually, for some reason, the bolt pan to body kit that we got, the hardware, was shy, like 7 screws and washers, and then it was missing a couple of the screws that go. There's 2 bolts that are a little bit different than the ones that run along the side that go up kind of near the front corners of the body. So there and there. Actually, I can point here. They go, it's going to be hard to see. They go about right there underneath. Anyway, so those were missing from enough to do both sides. So anyway, Wolfsburg West, of course, being the stand-up guys that they are, they made it right, and they got us all the bolts we were missing. So Rafa actually finished bolting the body and pan together. Another thing he did, which I'm not really going to be able to show, is where the body bolts to the pan on the rear, basically on the rear shock tower on the chassis. There's essentially like a bracket that comes down from the body there that bolts to the shock tower, and there's a rectangular washer about that big that kind of fits down in there. Anyway, Wolfsburg actually makes those, and so we got those and installed them. You know, again, little details, not super exciting visually, and I'm certainly not going to pull that wheel off and show it to you, but it was done nonetheless. So some progress on wiring the motor up. I think the motor is actually completely wired now, so voltage regulator and idiot light and so on. He installed the hard line for the vacuum advanced distributor, and this is this giant correct 40 horse distributor here that you can see, looking very cool. And another thing that you're not really going to be able to see, because I'm not going to crawl under the car right now, the heat boxes to body tubes. There's big metal tubes that run between the heater boxes and the body. So again, lots and lots of things like that done today that are not super sexy to show or hard to show, and but you know, all part of building a car. Not everything is as cool as, you know, putting a window in with its trim or, you know, stuff like that. Again, original shift knob that you can see there. Cleaned it up and installed it, and it looks amazing. And let's see, some more little details here. You almost never see these. This little cover that covers the kind of the bottom of the hinge. These things are missing on like every car, it seems. Don't know why, but for some reason almost nobody has these. Nobody makes a reproduction of this. We were able to actually get a pretty nice used one from our friends at Wolfsburg West, and Rafa did a little bit of body work on it, had it powder coated, and there you go. Looks amazing. Another thing he did was run the line from the squirter bottle up and over to the squirter, and so this is one of those things. Wolfsburg West, the line they sell for this is clear, which is actually not correct. And so we went ahead and I think Rafa bought this at an auto parts store. It's vacuum line, I believe, but it actually looks very correct as far as being a black rubber hose. So little details like that matter to us. Don't know if anyone else will notice, but we know that's right. Clear one is not right. So let's see. I think those are kind of the big things that he did here on that today. So why don't we change gears a little bit here and talk about the 64 bus. So I started the morning off on this guy putting the pedal assemblies together. So I got the levers that go underneath the floor and the pedals themselves back from powder coating. So went ahead and got those installed. Again, there's no clutch in here now, so the clutch pedal just kind of freely falls to the floor. The brake system is all installed. Brakes are not bled yet, so of course this goes to the floor if you push it hard enough. But on the brake pedal on these, there is a return spring that pushes it back up. So those went in, and pretty happy with how those look overall. Let's see. Maybe I can show this without too much trouble here. There we go. So that is the clutch one. And from this side, you can see the brake one there. So those are all installed, and kind of finished installing the master cylinder there. I don't know why that boot looks all ugly. I'll have to, that boot right there is the dust boot. I'll have to fix that. It looks kind of ugly. Yeah, so that all went in, and then I moved on to the rear brakes. Here I had kind of stopped yesterday on the brakes because I was missing the little brass T-fitting, which I'll show you here. So the line runs all the way under the bus from the master cylinder, and it comes into this brass T on the left-hand side over here. And then from there it goes off to the passenger side and then the driver's side. So you can kind of see how that works. So I formed this line that goes up and over, and then formed the line that goes from the T to the left side here. Yeah, pretty happy with how those came out. Look pretty neat. And so now these just go to nothing because there's no rear axle in here to hook anything up to. But I wanted to mention, and I've done a how-to or a tech tip on this before. So this is something that I do when I make brake lines, is I take a piece of bendable wire that's the same length of the brake line. So for example, this brake line here. So when the line is still straight, I measure a piece of this malleable wire that's the same length, cut it to length, and then basically just start putting bends in it the way that I think it's going to be routed until I get the shape where it goes from, point A to point B, essentially, like that, if you can even see that. And then when I go to bend the actual hard line, then I kind of use this as a template, and it just lets me, play around with the shape and stuff like that with this wire, which is much easier to bend than the brake line. And then that way the brake line itself, when I do bend it, pretty much get it exactly right the first time, so we don't end up with a bunch of, extra bends. Like if I bend it, too soon over here or something, and then had to go and like straighten that back out to move the bend out there, that kind of thing. So now it's pretty much every bend I put in it, I know exactly where it needs to go and more or less the correct angle. And so they come out looking really neat that way. So as another example, here's the little one that I made here, which is this brake line here. Goes there. Anyway, it fits really well. You'll have to take my word for it. Kind of hard to do with one hand, but yeah. So a little tech tip, if anyone's curious about that, I do have a video in my tech tips on it, but I think I pretty much just explained what it is that I do. So you should be able to figure that out based on that. If anyone's having to make hard brake lines, highly recommend it, especially unless you're doing a car where you had brake lines on it already and you can use the existing brake lines as templates. If you're starting from scratch, which is what I'm doing here, then this is a really good trick to figure out the shape of the line. And you can bend and unbend these pieces of wire as many times as you want to get it right, and then and only then go ahead and create the actual lines. So little tip for you there. So beyond that, got back on some wiring, and this customer has an ISP speedometer for this car, which looks really nice. Pretty much looks like an original one, very close. But the wiring on this thing actually is kind of a pain in the butt. And so if anyone from ISP is watching this, sorry, but I don't like the way the wiring is on these things. It has all these tiny wires coming out of it that just end, and then you're supposed to either crimp connectors on them or something, and it's just, they're tiny wires, and it's just a huge pain in the ass. So basically what I ended up doing is cutting them all to length and putting them onto a old VW style or old VW screw block terminal, and then from there they'll connect to their respective wires. So you see these blue wires back here, those are like the high beam and the idiot lights and stuff like that. So those will all connect on here. I wish ISP would just put, you know, a row of male spade connectors or something on the back of this switch, so that things could just be connected like they're supposed to be connected on an original one. Because yeah, honestly, these little wires are just a pain in the ass, and there's not really, that I see, a really clean way to install this, short of using a little terminal strip like that. So just some feedback. If anyone's looking to buy one of these, just be aware that wiring them kind of sucks, and it's hard to make it look as good as wiring a stock speedometer, for those reasons. But you know, once it's installed and you're driving the car, looks awesome. So so there you go. The other thing was, I got today from Eddie Collins at Eddie and Dave's Garage, was this very hard to find little flasher light. So when you turn on the emergency blinkers on this bus, these later buses, which is that switch right there, by the way, then this thing here will flash and illuminate to show that the emergency switch is turned on. So yeah, nobody makes a reproduction of that I know of. So thankfully Eddie had a really nice one. So thanks, Eddie. And if anyone's building a bus, especially parts that there's no reproductions of, Eddie's got a really good stash of parts out there. So if he doesn't have it, he probably knows someone who does also. So a very resourceful guy, especially for buses. Anyway, this was a bit of a long one today, but we did make a lot of progress on these two cars, so lots to talk about. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.